Okay, so think about this. An artist, really revered, collected, but who deliberately steps back from the spotlight.
Yeah, almost becomes this kind of mythical figure.
That's Bob Camblin for you. Here's someone who created this massive amount of work. It's scattered everywhere now, globally.
And fetches astonishing prices when you can even find it.
Exactly, and yet he consciously stepped away. It's, oh, intriguing.
That really is. And for this deep dive, we've actually got quite a bit to work with. We have excerpts from his own writings.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, pretty comprehensive biography, a book that showcases his art, Zen, and the art of enlightenment.
I've seen that one.
Some really interesting stuff from a YouTube channel dedicated to him, Incomplete Works.
Right.
Plus historical context, and even a reflection from his close friend, Earl Staley. So, a lot of angles.
That's fantastic. And that's really our mission today, isn't it? To plunge into the world, the mind of Bob Camblin.
Yeah.
And you don't need to be, a deep art expert. His
Mm.
ideas about creativity, perception, reality itself, they're just really engaging.
They have that broader relevance, for sure. It's about how we see, how we experience things.
It's a chance to understand the thinking behind someone who wasn't just making pictures, but asking these big questions.
Which, it does make you wonder right away. Why would an artist with that kind of reputation just fade from view?
Hmm.
Hopefully, looking at all these different sources, his words, the bio, the interpretations, we can get a sense of that.
Okay, let's start at the beginning then. His formative years. He was born in Oklahoma, 1928.
And art was in the family, right? Both parents were artists.
Yeah, exactly. Even in high school, he was the art director for the yearbook, so this wasn't just a whim.
And that Ponca City context is pretty interesting when you think about it. The whole Marland Oil era,
Mm.
boom and bust.
Right. Creates a certain backdrop, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Opulence, but also that potential for things to fall apart. We're talking
Mhm.
ice boxes, limited radio,
Hmm.
that kind of time.
And the Marland estate itself, that grandeur, then its decline.
And the Pioneer Woman statue, apparently that pops up subtly later on. It suggests this mix of the everyday and these bigger fragile narratives he grew up around.
That makes sense. And he found a connection early on, didn't he, with Forrest Harrisberger in high school?
Yeah, bonding over drawing and, as they called it, just good vibes.
Mm.
That friendship lasted for, what, over 60 years?
Wow. That says something.
It really does. And then after military service, they both ended up at the Kansas City Art Institute. The GI Bill helped there.
Right. The GI Bill was huge for artists then.
Absolutely. Opened so many doors. And for Camblin, KCAI wasn't just about the technical training. He became this, voracious reader.
Emerson, the I Ching.
Yeah, and haiku haiga. That seems really key.
That connection to haiku and haiga, it feels important, doesn't it? These short, evocative poems, simple brushstrokes.
Exactly. Capturing an essence with minimal means. You can sort of see the seeds of his later visual style there, maybe.
I think so. That focus on essence.
So these early influences are shaping his worldview, his art. And then comes the big one, the Fulbright to Italy.
Yeah, that must have been completely transformative for a young artist from Oklahoma.
The biography paints it that way. He traveled all over Europe, but Italy, Florence, the Uffizi.
Palermo, the Capuchin catacombs. He remembered the mummies, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Venice, his Emerald City. These weren't just tourist trips. They were deep dives into art history, culture.
So what specific artist really grabbed him there? Botticelli gets mentioned.
Right. The Birth of Venus is linked somehow to KPFT radio in Houston, which is interesting.
Huh. Okay.
And his own painting, Flora, which is clearly referencing Botticelli's Primavera, is apparently full of hidden images.
So he's not just copying, he's engaging, reinterpreting.
Totally.
Yeah.
Taking these masterpieces and filtering them through his own kind of modern, maybe even coded lens.
Okay, so after Italy, he comes back to the U.S. and starts this long teaching career.
Yeah. Ringling, Illinois, Detroit, Utah, eventually Rice University in Houston. But even while teaching, he always kept his private studio going, had a demanding exhibition schedule.
That shows a real commitment to his own practice.
Definitely. But it wasn't always smooth sailing. He apparently got frustrated with the art scene in Salt Lake City.
Ah, okay. And that's what led him to Houston in '67.
Seems like it was a big factor. And once he got to Houston, boom, right back into exhibiting heavily.
And he had some pretty unique ideas about exhibitions themselves, right?
Yeah, he believed the artist should control the whole environment. Minimal interference.
So a very direct encounter between the viewer and the work. No gallery noise.
Exactly. He wanted it unmediated. And he also seemed pretty grounded about the whole art game. as they call it.
Faith in the work, common sense.
Right. It lines up with that quote about having a perfectly average viewpoint, letting him appreciate science and magic. Kind of balanced, but open.
You could almost see that philosophy in the work itself, like that idea of the stumbling block as a stepping stone.
Yeah, the paintings with the jars of water representing that. It's a great visual metaphor, turning obstacles into progress.
That theme of transformation, finding potential in unlikely places, seems really central.
It does. And then you have the Scarecrow series, inspired by Gunter Grass's novel Dog Years.
Right. They start as symbols of spring renewal.
But then they evolve into these really complex figures in myths and legends, using things like lobster shells, larvae.
Wow. Pushing that metamorphosis theme.
And what's really interesting with the later Scarecrow drawings is the text he includes.
Yeah, the bio says it might not be descriptive, but maybe a disguise. Or clues.
Kind of echoing Tom Wolfe's The Painted Word idea, maybe. That art becoming more literary.
Could be. His goal seems to be pulling the viewer in, making them explore it like a puzzle.
But knowing there might be traps, dead ends, deeper meanings hidden away, it asks a lot of the viewer.
Definitely an active engagement. So how did his style evolve overall? Early stuff was social protest.
Yeah, more overtly. Later, he combines that social realism with non-objective abstract elements. Really interesting mix.
And influences like Cremoni, Etruscan figures.
Yeah.
He was constantly pulling things together.
And he started focusing more on drawings as finished works, right? Not just studies.
Monumental scale, even. And incorporating corrections, those visible changes, into early pieces like The Descent from the Cross.
Which is fascinating, making the process visible. And in the 60s, he's trying to blend Hugo van der Gogh's poetry with Goya's emotion.
It's quite a combination.
And using applied paper that would age and change, adding another layer of time to the work. And then there's that whole enigmatic series of masks.
It just paints a picture of someone constantly thinking, experimenting, layering meaning.
And using that muted palette seems deliberate, too, to harmonize the paintings and the drawings.
Okay, let's shift into the 1970s. This is where things get really mystical, apparently.
Yeah, that's how it's described, a real turning point. He's taking the subjective, symbolic, decorative side of art and tuning it into something mystical.
Sounds intense.
And apparently, no limits on his output then.
Yeah.
Just exploring all kinds of styles simultaneously. But the drawings, they get more cryptic.
Hiding the meaning more deliberately.
Seems like it. And themes of life cycles, birth, death, regeneration, that metamorphosis, again, become really prominent.
And recurring images.
Yeah.
Puppets, scarecrows, skulls.
Glass reliquaries, too. Potent stuff. And he's reading Freud, De Chirico, Grunewald, Kazanzaki's Grass, pulling all that in.
It's a really rich stew of influences.
But he had this playful side, too, right? That comment. If you think it's funny, I'll get serious.
Yeah. Suggests you couldn't easily pin him down.
His myth-making machine gets even more poignant.
That's the phrase used. Drawings and watercolors get more interwoven, creating these illusionistic deep surfaces.
Hinting at meanings hidden beneath. And there's that emphasis on really looking past the obvious.
Appreciating the sensitive draftsmanship, rewarding patient viewing.
And apparently, sometimes you had to be really patient. The bio mentions secret images emerging in paintings only after decades.
Wow. Leading to knowing the work, not just understanding it. That's a powerful idea.
It really is.
Okay.
Let's try to ground this in a specific piece. Red Sticks X.
Right. The description is vivid. Dark bottle, textured surface, that red X with hearts and a snake.
Wisps of smoke, abstract background.
In the analysis in the Zen and the Art of Enlightenment book, pulls in Zen and the I Ching to unpack it.
Which is super insightful. The Zen view sees the bottle as mu emptiness, but like pure potential.
Not nothingness, but potentiality.
Exactly. And the smoke as impermanence, a core Zen idea.
Okay. And the I Ching perspective.
Links it to hexagram 64, Weiji, before completion. That state of being in between, uncertain.
And the red X is the moment of decision or caution.
Yeah, it holds that tension. So putting Zen and I Ching together, the painting seems to embody potential versus danger, containment versus release.
The X as a warning, but also marking something significant, very multi-layered.
And the interpretation connects it to surrealism, too. Magritte, De Chirico, using everyday objects in weird contexts.
And early modernism, like cubism or abstract expressionism in the abstract forms.
That blending of traditions, artistic, philosophical, seems absolutely crucial to understanding Camblin.
Yeah. And that YouTube video, The Vessel of Potential, sounds like it visually reinforces all that. Containment, release, risk. emptiness, choice, the unknown.
It's like all these sources are lenses showing different facets of the same core ideas.
Looking at the book reviews and forewords, they give us some broader philosophical takeaways, too. Art as questions disguised as images.
And philosophy as incomplete answers, that constant back and forth.
I like that. And the idea of transforming the ordinary, a figure-4 trap, a tattooed arm, a frog, into symbols.
Taking the mundane and loading it with meaning.
And those paradoxes, he makes visible traps that can't trap. It really challenges you.
Makes you question assumptions. Look again. It's all about illusion, impermanence, the traps we fall into, external ones, self-made ones.
And finding power in stillness. It feels like art grappling with really fundamental human stuff.
Yeah, navigating the absurd and the profound, as one source puts it.
And the foreword to the Zen book makes those connections between Western art movements and Eastern thought Zen, I Ching.
Finding common ground in things like intuition, interconnectedness, cycles.
It suggests Camblin's work isn't just passive viewing. It's a portal to heightened awareness. It demands active contemplation.
Right. The act of looking becomes this kind of dialogue with the art and with yourself. Ekphrastic dialogue, they call
A
it.
fancy term, but it makes sense. A silent conversation.
And tapping into archetypes, inner landscapes. But it's not instructional, is it? It's more like a catalyst.
For personal discovery, leading towards everyday enlightenment, seeing the profound in the ordinary.
And a key part of that is resisting easy answers, right? Lingering in the ambiguity.
Absolutely fundamental, it seems. Okay, let's shift focus a bit to his later life, his withdrawal almost. Earl Staley's quote offers some really personal glimpses.
It really does. He talks about their instant friendship at Rice, their collaborations, B&E Productions, the tattoo show.
Pretty cutting-edge stuff for the time.
Yeah, but Staley also talks frankly about Camblin getting disillusioned with teaching, eventually leaving it.
And personal struggles too, divorces, broken romances.
And that description of his studio, a wizard's den full of weird objects, tells you something about his mind, maybe?
And adopting the Mr. Peanut costume. Signing work anonymous. That's pretty iconoclastic.
Definitely questioning that standard artist persona. Then the moves, Oregon, Louisiana, cutting off contact with Houston friends.
Staley mentions that brief return visit before he died, which sounds poignant.
Yeah, and the fact that attempts to organize a retrospective fell through.
But there was that later benefit show after his stroke. It's kind of a bittersweet end to the public story.
It is, but if you think about it, that elusiveness, stepping back,
Mm.
it almost fits with the themes in his work, doesn't it?
That's a really good point. It enhances the enigma. He was recognized, respected, collected, but remained mysterious.
And the scarcity of the work definitely adds to that mystique, which is partly why that Zen and the Art of Enlightenment book was important, trying to get his work seen more widely.
So his legacy is one that, well, it continues to inspire, but also challenge people.
Yeah, immeasurable contributions, one source says, even if it doesn't fit neat art history boxes, and influencing contemporary artists, too.
Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive here, we've looked at an artist fascinated by paradox who really wanted viewers to participate in finding meaning.
Someone who blended Eastern thought, Western art, and cultivated this really intriguing, maybe deliberately enigmatic persona.
And his focus on perception, on questioning assumptions, that really connects to, our own curiosity, those moments where something just clicks.
Those aha moments we all seek.
So here's a final thought to chew on. In a world just drowning in information, how do we cultivate that scene Camblin championed instead of just superficial looking? How do we learn to sit with ambiguity, like he seemed to suggest, to find those deeper meanings, not just in art, but, everywhere?
Which leads to a question for everyone listening. Could embracing the unknown more in our own lives, kind of like Camblin did in his art, unlock unexpected growth, maybe a different kind of understanding?
Definitely something to think about. And if we've sparked your interest today, really go look up images of Bob Camblin's work online.
Yeah, seeing it visually adds so much.
It absolutely will. And check out that Incomplete Works' channel on YouTube, too, for a deeper visual dive.